Hey everybody, this is Heather and Jenny with Surviving Darkness, episode 16.
Today I thought we would probably talk about the issues that happen with men as well as women. That we sort of, like, we had someone send us a message and he had been, like, sexually abused, and Jenny's thought, or what she said automatically was, wow, you don't really hear that a lot about women being the abusers.
No.
And why is that? It happens.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we saw that with our family, like the aunt or whatever was abusive. Why is it accepted for a woman, and why is it okay for a woman to mess with a young teenager?
Which is something
or
that
a young
they're
kid.
actually doing a lot of changing now, because you'd hear like the teachers and stuff and things like that, but they're actually going after those because they're sexual predators too.
Right.
Even if they're just out of college and they're 22, and they're teaching teenage boys and they're still 16, 15 years old, it's still a sexual predator.
Right.
So,
it's almost like it's a double standard. Like, if a man messes with like 11, 12, 13-year-old girl and he's like 18 above or whatever, he's this sexual predator. But if a young boy winds up having intercourse or whatever with an older woman, it's, that's cool. Mm-hmm. And I don't understand. It's not cool.
Because they're still not understanding, you know what I mean? Like, they're still not able to completely wrap their brains around that that's wrong. You know what I mean? Like, the young kid is still not.
Right.
Even though they're, 12, 13, and they're having all these hormonal things going on, it's still not right.
It just seems like everybody's like, that man is sick and he's a pedophile and this, that, and the other, but it's not the same ramifications for women who do the exact same thing.
Yeah.
And that shouldn't be. No. It shouldn't be at all. Because guys are just as damaged as girls when they go through stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And it seems like it's a double standard. And I don't know if it's a manly macho thing that guys feel that they can't express when things happen like that. Mm-hmm. That they keep it more to themselves. I mean, with our family, we're finding out later on into their adulthoods that stuff had happened. And it's almost like they assumed that everybody knew when nobody knew anything at all.
Right.
So I just don't know. I don't understand the double standard, and two, why it's
almost okay.
Yeah, well, that, and why it is almost like it's not okay for a guy to tell or talk about it.
Yeah.
It's like, it's okay for a girl to say, this is what happened to me and all that, but it's almost like, don't let anybody know that happened to you.
Right.
It's almost like they're dirty, but it's not so much dirty on a girl.
Right. And it should be, if she's the one that's doing things that she shouldn't be, even if they're close in age, you know what I mean? Like, if she's still not, doing something that she's not supposed to be doing and that person is not comfortable with it, the male is not, then that's still inappropriate behavior. And something should be done about that,
Right. And it just amazes me that it's almost like it's okay. It's okay for a girl to talk about the things that she's been through, but it's not okay for a guy to talk about it. Mm-hmm. And I don't understand where that comes from. Because we all have the same, like, trauma.
They still feel the shame and, everything else that the woman does or the girl does, It's just not spoken about, like you say. It's just not. And it should be. It should be okay for that to be talked about and, addressed and everything too. And those women should have to, suffer the consequences just as a man does.
And a man who has been abused as a young boy or a young teenager or anything like that should still be able to talk about it as an adult without being, I don't know the word I'm looking for, like he's lost his man card because he's talking about it.
Right. Mm-hmm.
I didn't want to say demand. That just sounded funny. Right. But I was like, I can't find the word for it. But they shouldn't lose their man card because they're talking about something that happened to them years ago. Mm-hmm. And that is almost like how it is.
Yes.
It's almost like everybody looks at them differently. Like they're no longer.
Like, why would you not be happy about that? Like, that's pretty cool, you know? Right. No, it's not always a cool situation. Just the same as it's not for a woman. You know, what we went through at young ages wasn't cool for us, you know? And just the same as there's several people in our family who went through it. And it was very traumatic for them. And actually, you know, kind of caused things to keep proceeding as they have through different generations and everything, too. Because they didn't know how to deal with it. They weren't talking about it, you know? And so the trauma just keeps going, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
And it causes rifts in the family because we may not have known stuff had happened to other relatives. And at one point in our lives, we were very close. Mm-hmm. And then all of a sudden, it's like, hadn't talked to them in years.
Yes.
And then we find out why. And you're like, we had no clue. Mm-hmm. But they had no clue what we were going through either.
Right.
It's like everything was like swept under the rug, hidden, and everything. And once everything started coming out, then we're able to share that even with family. Mm-hmm. And I was talking to a niece yesterday, and she's been listening to the stuff that we've been saying on the podcast. And she was like, I told her, I said, well, our whole purpose of this is to stop it now so that you all don't go through it, so your kids don't go through it, and just go ahead and stop it. I said, we may not have been open about the things that were going on, but we were still in the background protecting.
Right.
I was like, when we were told that they were supposed to go stay with our parents, we're like, no, they're not. Mm-hmm. If I have to tell their mom, they're not going to stay, then that's just what I'll do. They're just not going there and staying. And without coming out and saying exactly why it is that we weren't comfortable with them staying.
Right. Yes. Yes.
So we were still at that point of almost being afraid to say exactly what had happened, but we knew that we were still going to protect them at all costs.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And I was telling her, I was like, you all didn't know what was going on, but we were sort of in the background telling him that ain't happening. Mm-hmm. They're not staying. You're not going to be around them alone. Period. And then I was telling her about, you know, the pool party and stuff. And how we were like, no, you're not going around them. Mm-hmm. So she was like, well, I can honestly say that you all have done a good job as far as protecting because nothing happened with us.
Good.
So that did make me feel good. I was like, we're stopping it.
Yes. That
right there has stopped. Mm-hmm. So we know that much. That one has stopped. That that one's over because he's no longer here to do that.
Right.
So we know that we did manage.
And nor will we have allowed anything within our power or knowledge to happen because
it may not have happened.
Right.
But we were going to take that chance.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was going to say.
We knew what could happen, and it wasn't going to happen with them.
No.
We weren't going to let any of the others feel the pain and just the devastation of having your life ruined like that. Mm-hmm. And it's a lifelong thing. You don't just get over it. You don't get over it at all. You just learn to, I guess, cope with it.
Right. Yeah.
And try to find a norm.
Bringing up the things from the past and like the other family members and the fact that, you know, that we just found out some things, 2 years ago? No, it was last year, wasn't it? Last year. And anyway, so there was family, like friends that were around, and we found out they had done some things to family members that we kind of suspected but didn't know for sure.
Right.
And like you say, especially the oldest one, he didn't talk about any of the stuff that ever happened with him.
Right.
You know, like we knew of one thing that had happened because there was other people involved that we knew about.
Right.
But our family member was telling us about a close family friend at the time who had evidently, basically, I guess you'd say, terrorized the whole group of kids, because he did this to several kids, to them. You know, there was 2 or 3 of them in this immediate family, and then several other kids throughout that community that were also taken into this building and things too.
Right. And I had no clue.
No.
Nothing was ever done towards us, and I don't know if it was because maybe he was a little afraid of our dad because he was a little crazy,
mm-hmm.
or if the fact that we didn't put up with a bunch.
Right. Correct. Yeah. That's what I was going to say. We had
been through a whole lot, and
mm-hmm.
we wouldn't have cared to pop somebody.
No.
We would have punched them in the mouth.
And
if
I
they
think
tried.
that even at that point, like, because I was younger than you all, I still would have been like, excuse me, I don't think that you do that. You know what I mean? You don't touch me like that.
Right.
You know?
Right.
And things hadn't happened with me yet at that time with, Dad and everything. But I still know that I would have been like, don't. Like you say, I would have popped him. I would have done whatever I had to do. Right. And I'm not saying anything bad. You know, we're not saying anything about the other ones because it's a totally different circumstance.
Right.
You know, they were better friends and, thought that,
that wouldn't have happened.
Yeah.
Is what they were thinking.
Yes. And
it's hard. It's hard when you get caught off guard by someone. It's like.
And from my understanding, like, it happened once, and then it was a couple times after that with the other ones, so, you think to yourself that you would protect the next one, but at the same time, when it happens to you and you're so traumatized, a lot of times you can't even see
past
what's going on
with
the other ones.
Yeah, you can't see past your trauma to see what's going on with everybody else.
Mm-hmm. And this person now, like as of 2-3 years ago, every time that I saw him, I would give him a hug and, everything like that. And now I can't even listen to a radio station because their voice is on there and I can't stand it, And so, I mean, like, that's just how it is. Like, I just can't. And it makes me mad because we know what has gone on. And it's another person, just like we say with a lot of the people in our family, who's going to get by with it, who should be in jail because there's other things that have come out too about other people in his family, and he should be in jail. And just the same as several other people in our family should be in jail or should have been in jail, and they're not.
Right.
And it's not right. And it makes me mad because, because things happen and people don't say things about it, which we understand that totally. I totally understand that and get it. But at the same time, there were things that were brought out in this person's life, and he should have been in jail.
Right.
And it's kind of like, who so he's not.
That's true.
So, is that right? No, it's not.
No, it's not.
Not by any means.
And the excuse that, well, things have happened to them. So, that still don't make it okay. Things happened to us, but we didn't pass it on to someone else. We didn't do the exact same thing to someone else. And I'm not saying we're better than other people. Mm-mm. People deal with things differently. But I can't understand how we knew how we felt when things happened to us. We know how vulnerable we felt, how miserable we were just with ourselves, how dirty we felt. why would we put that on someone else?
Mm-hmm. Wouldn't.
So, I mean, a lot of people use that as an excuse for their behavior, or other people use it for their behavior. Oh, but you don't know what all they went through. Mm-hmm. Well, we've all gone through stuff, but it don't make it okay to put it on someone else.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that is exactly right. Yes.
So I'm like, it's all excuses. And back to the whole, why are guys not allowed to talk about it?
Right.
It's the whole stigma of all of it.
And it makes you think, too, about how many of these people that you see that walk around that are on drugs and everything.
What did they go through?
Yeah, to make them be that way. And if you could actually just talk to them and actually talk to the real person that's in there behind all the drugs and find out what there is that's happened, you would find that probably a lot of them have had some type of abuse, sexual, right, physical, whatever, and that's why they've turned to what they have. And right, it's sad because, yes, I feel like it's a choice, you choose to do that at the beginning, but some people don't, to take that first hit or whatever it is, you know what I'm trying to say. But at the same time, some people just, that's how they numb it. They don't have, like we've said before, the relationship with God. They don't know that, and so this is what they do to deal with it. Right.
That's their way to deal with it, but they're not dealing with
right,
it.
Yeah.
It's usually something devastating has happened.
Which is easy to do, because that was how I was making it, was by not talking about it. I wasn't making it, but I didn't turn to drugs or anything, but I still just would not acknowledge a lot of it. I just didn't, because.
But it's not. I mean, we're sitting there talking about it, and it's not so much as, it don't even have to be drugs. It don't have to be alcohol. It can be like self-sabotage. Mm-hmm. Like, I'm a stress eater. Mm-hmm. So it's not healthy for me to just gorge on stuff. But that's how I didn't deal with things. Mm-hmm. And like, as I said before, like a young adult or whatever, I mean, I was eating fried potatoes and macaroni and cheese at night trying to get fat. I was mm-hmm. like, maybe if I'm unattractive, people will leave me alone. And it really had nothing to do with that. It was more of the spiritual thing, like bringing people in. It right. was that evil demonic presence that had nothing to do with looks. Mm-hmm. It was the fact that it was there to torment me. And right. that was another way of torment. Then I'm like miserable because I
hate the way you look, yeah, and I hate the way you feel, and yes. everything. Yeah, absolutely, yes.
So it's just
because then it's another mental battle because yes. you have all this stuff. Yeah, absolutely.
Right. So it's not. Sometimes we deal with things, not necessarily drinking, drugs, things like that, but we're still numbing the pain using other things mm-hmm. that is still unhealthy and going to cause issues later, because mm-hmm. you have to break that cycle,
right? Yeah, absolutely.
That stress eating cycle, mm-hmm. and substitute something else to deal with the stress and things like that. Mm-hmm. So it's not. I mean, we all have different ways of dealing and not dealing,
right? Mm-hmm.
And drugs is one that a lot of people use because then they don't have to feel it.
And drinking, either both, right. And a lot of times they do both.
And it's almost like they don't know how to process that pain mm-hmm. and what's happened to them. They don't know how, in their mind, how to process it. So I'm just going to numb it. Mm-hmm. And then they're so far gone, they don't even realize or remember why it is that they even started it in the first place. Mm-hmm. So I think that losing that control when someone abuses you causes you to lose control of everything.
Yeah. And when you don't acknowledge it and you just try to bury it, then that doesn't help either.
Right.
Because you're not dealing with the problem.
Right.
It's still there, you know. And that's what I say. You know, I thought that I was okay because I wasn't talking about it and I wasn't dealing with it, you know, and I would have taken everything to my grave, and that was the truth. I had no intentions of saying anything to anybody. But at some point, like it has the past few years, I'm sure it would have reared its ugly head like it has, even though, you know, I've been talking about things. You still kind of go through those processes, you know. There's almost like the grieving process, like we've said, you know, the hatred and then the depression and the anger and all this other stuff and, you know, denial, you know. And so,
but when we weren't dealing with it, when we were trying to stuff it, that's when we were the angriest.
Yeah.
It didn't matter if it was, I mean, it could have been the smallest thing in the world that someone shouldn't have blown up at, that we would blow up at. So it was subconsciously still there, and it was still eating at us, whether we wanted to think about it or deal with it or not. And it was just coming out that way. It was like, it's one of those things you can't really stuff it and it not manifest into something.
I think that's why a lot of times too, that like it's not funny, but it is kind of funny that, you know, the past several years, the one people, like the person I got into the arguments with the most or been ready to fight were men, you know. And it's like, I think because I have so much bitterness and hatred because of men, you know, because of things that have happened.
Right.
And it's like, you know, you say something to me, I'm not going to back down from you. You know what I mean? Like, and I'm not saying that like that I'm some big bad person. I don't mean that by any means, but it's just like,
you were controlled for so many years by a man. It's like, I'm not backing down from you. You're not going to run your mouth to me. I'm not going to stand here and put up with it. You don't intimidate me.
Yeah.
It's almost like you're putting your foot down to the person that
is in front of me at the time.
Exactly. Yeah. I was going to say not to the person, but they're not there.
Right. Yeah, that's exactly right. And like you said, we were controlled. Everything was controlled. We just had to be, this is the way it's going to be, and that's how it is, you know. And somebody says something and it sets me off. I'm like, sorry, you know, no, I'm not doing that. We can have it out right here, you know. We can go outside. We can do whatever we got to do, but you're not going to run, you know, you're not going to tell me what to do or how things are going to happen.
Right.
So,
yeah, it's letting other people know that I'm never going to be in that vulnerable state where someone is going to control me again. It's pretty much where we're at. I'm never going to be in that position or feeling that way or thinking that way. I mean, because we don't have any control over what positions we might end up in the future or whatever, but we're going to do all we can to protect ourselves from ever being in a position where we are totally controlled. We want peace now.
Yes.
Peace and without being manipulated and controlled and everything else. And sometimes we fight the wrong people for that control. And we go at the wrong people for that control.
Yeah. And then like the littlest thing can set me off, you know, with, to me, it's a big thing, you know, like one of them was about my mom, you know, and it was kind of just like, this is the way I'm going to handle it. And then it went totally out of hand. And okay, so whatever you want to do, let's just do it. You know what I mean? Like, however you want to handle it, buddy, let's just go, you know?
Right. And you broke my door.
I did break your door. I know. But I didn't break him.
Right. And I'm left like, wow, she broke my door.
But I helped the situation out. And I helped you out. So.
Right. And that's what I tell everybody. She got mad and she broke my door.
But I also, you know, like you say, let things out on this other person that a situation needed to be handled. But at the same time, I probably did get a lot more angry than I should have at that moment, you know, because at that time, that's just that's where I was, you know, mentally.
And I think that over the years, we have come to a point of protecting Mom so much. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if it's because of different, like, health issues that she's had and things like that, if we feel more protective because of that, or because it's the only parent that we have left.
I think it's those two, and then I also think that we finally realized
all that she went through.
Yes, that she went through just as much, if not more, and than we did.
And she's always been so non-confrontational, mm-hmm. and taken people walking all over her, and she's so giving, and people take advantage of that.
Yes.
That we're like, we're going to do all that we can to protect her from leeches. And that's what it feels like, leeches.
Yeah, you're right. Yes. And I don't know how you feel, but sometimes I feel like if I would have known, or if we would have known about everything that she was going through also at that time, none of us knew about anything with each other.
Right.
But I feel like if you and I would have known, things would have been very differently. Would have gone very differently.
Right.
With our dad.
I think I had a lot of resentment towards, like, almost every adult in my life.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm like, how can you be there and see all this stuff going on, but not see what's going on?
Right. And we had so many people that have said that now that everything came out. Well, we thought that there was something going on.
And I don't resent them
right,
now.
Exactly. No,
I just felt like at that time,
how can you be around?
Why wasn't someone saving us?
Yeah. How can you be around all the time like we were? Like our families were close with several different family members or other families. And how do you not see anything? How do you not, And
I think maybe subconsciously, I may have even thought that at that time about Mom.
Mm-hmm.
I don't now, but at that time when things were going on, I was like, how can you not see what your husband's doing?
Right.
And I mean, a lot of times people don't see that stuff. Mm-hmm. And when you're going through something, you don't really see what everybody else is going through, because you're always in that fight or flight mode.
And when you're just
surviving.
Surviving. When you're in the middle of everything too, like you say, it's just, you're trying to make it daily.
And you don't want to think that your husband and the father of your kids is hurting your kids. Mm-hmm. Hurting his own kids. You don't want to think that. Mm-mm.
And that's what she said. She said there are things that made me think maybe, but then it was like, when I would mention it, it was that I was crazy and everything. And, so, and we know now she was going through so much herself that she had no idea. That was just, like you say, she was surviving.
Right.
And that's the best that we could do.
Right.
But you still think, what? Yeah, why don't you see this, But we don't blame her. And we've had people say, and we've talked about this before, how did your mom not see it? Well, she was going through her own hell. She was fighting her own battle. And like you say, it's easy to just hone in on yourself and worry about yourself or just survive, period. Right. And then, and you just don't know. You have no idea because you're trying to make it. You
don't know what you're going to do in any circumstance until you're faced with that mm-hmm. circumstance. I mean, a lot of people can say, well, if it was me, I would have. Mm-hmm. And if I was there, I would have. No, you don't know what mm-hmm. you would have done in the middle of that situation.
It's like, I would like to think that I would have had the strength to have just left, gone and moved in with our grandmother or something like that. But we didn't.
Right.
I'm sure you thought about it. I know I thought about just leaving. But then again, at the same time, it was if you leave or you do something like that, then this thing will follow you and you will still be tormented wherever you go.
Well, I was told that she wasn't able to take care of me and couldn't afford to take care of me. So I would just wind up in foster care with people who didn't love me at all.
I never mentioned anything, never said anything about anything. I just thought things,
So I first thought she was an option, but then I was told that wasn't an option. And now that I'm older, I know it could have been an option that she would have sacrifice whatever to make sure that we were okay if she knew what was going on.
And with that being said, too, about wanting to get out of the situation, that's how you get teenage runaways, you know? You don't have a clue what it's like out there on the street, but it's got to be a little bit better than where you are at home.
Right.
And
for a lot of them, yeah.
Yeah, and it's sad.
Right.
Because I can definitely see how they get to the mindset of that. Absolutely, you know? My gosh, you know, every day for me is torture at home. Whatever they're going through. Right. You know, maybe it's a parent on drugs or something like that. Or they're abused or, you know, neglected or whatever. And you think that the grass is greener on the other side, or it can't be as, you know, it's got to be a little bit better. And I
mean, there have been some who have gotten out and lived on the streets for a while and came up way better than what they would have if they would have stayed in that environment too.
Yes.
And then there's some that just don't like to be told no. There's just that generation too that no, I'm not going to stay here. I'm just going to leave because I don't like to be told no, and I don't like rules and all that.
And I get frustrated even now as an adult when I hear people say, oh my gosh, like my life is just horrible, or, you know, the things I went through were just horrible. My teenage years and all this, or my whole upbringing was just awful. And it's basically because they were not let do some of the things that they wanted to do or whatever. And, you know, I've said this too. There's someone that's, you know, anyway, my mother-in-law, and that's how hers was. Her life was just awful and everything. And okay, well, I'm sorry that yours was not roses. Nobody's life is, you know, all roses most of the time. But at the same time, you didn't go through what we went through.
Right.
And, you know, it's not a competition. Like we've said, it's not a competition to see whose life is worse. No.
Right.
But at the same time, when you have lived through things that are absolutely horrific, you do get tired of hearing, oh, well, I didn't like it because this happened. And it was, you know, basically just something simple. And it's like, are you serious? You know what I mean? Like your life wasn't being threatened every day. Right. Or, you know, or you literally weren't being choked every night, or you know, or not every night, but you know what I mean, like choked, or, you know, death threats left.
Right. We try to be sympathetic, but it's hard to be sympathetic when
you feel like somebody's being immature about things.
Yes. Yeah.
That's what it is.
You're like, oh wow, I wish I would have had that life.
Yes.
I wish that was the only thing I had to be upset over.
Yes.
Is I wanted a slice of pizza and I got a cheeseburger for dinner.
Yes.
I mean, yeah. Yeah.
I mean,
and not trying to downplay.
No, that's yes.
That because everybody is different.
And everybody handles things differently.
But it's hard for us to have that sympathy.
Yes.
For people just because they didn't get their way with something. Mm-hmm. And you're like, yeah.
I get it, but I don't get it.
You really had it rough.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there are different types of abuse. There's mental abuse. I mean, that, you know, they may not have gone through the sexual abuse or anything like that, like we did. And they still went through trauma.
Right.
Because a lot of times, you know, you hear this said, and I feel the same way, that you can hit me and that bruise will go away, but you say something to me and that's going to stick in my head.
Mental abuse is definitely hard
and
to get over. And when you have someone that's convinced you for so many years, even with 2 college degrees, that you can't make it on your own, that you can never stand on your own 2 feet, that you need them. I mean, that's hard. It took years for me, even after having kids and everything else, to realize that I can, because that was put in my head so much. Mm-hmm. And that was just a way to keep you under the thumb. Mm-hmm. To control and manipulate is basically to say, you know, you have 2 college degrees, but you can never make it in the world because I'm the one who's helping you survive. Mm-hmm. I'm the only reason you're alive and making it, because, and it's almost like making him out to be a god.
Right.
You're still alive because I let you, pretty much.
Mm-hmm. And I went through a lot in my first marriage, a lot of mental abuse. And I didn't realize it until I got out, just how bad things were, because I was in that relationship for almost 9 years. And it was, about my weight, and then about, not being able to give him exactly what he wanted, or if I wanted to, if he wanted something, I was supposed to make a way for all of that. And, like I said, I didn't realize just how bad things were until I got out of a situation. And I remember one time we had a cookout at the house, and I walked outside to start the grill, and he walked out and he said, "You don't have makeup on?" It was just my family coming down, like my mom and dad, and that was it. And I was like, "No, I don't have makeup on." "Oh, well, I just thought you'd have makeup on." "Well, no, it's just my mom and dad coming down." "Oh, okay, well, whatever." So, of course, I went in and put makeup on, because there was that well, my goodness, I must look horrible without it,
Right.
And things like that, I'll have on like 90 pounds more now than I did ever, like a lot of times with him. But it was, I'm just not attracted to you. And okay, well, you know what? Yeah, I have put on weight, but so have you. Right. You have changed completely in your looks. I didn't marry you for your looks. You know what I mean? I love you wholeheartely, but evidently that's not the way that it is. And, how can you look at me and say that? And even now, that stuff still sticks with me. It does,
That you're not good enough.
Yes. And my husband now does not say anything like that. Like, we joke and pick about things, but he does not say anything like that. But it's still in my mind, we literally just had this conversation the other day. He was like, "You don't look bad without makeup." And I was like, "Yeah, I do. And he was like, "No, you don't." I said, "Yes, I do." And it's because, for so many years, are you going out like that? You can't go out like that. Like, are you serious right now?
But see, I do that to myself, or did.
Mm-hmm.
I've just noticed, like, since I've been off work and not able to work, and I don't want to say that I'm in a depression and just don't want to put makeup on, but I've come to realize those things don't matter so much. And before, there was no way I was leaving the house without makeup on. And now I'll go to the store. I'm like, I'm not taking the time to put makeup on just to go to the store and come back and wash my face later.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm only going to be gone 5 minutes, and I see no sense in taking half an hour, 20 minutes, whatever, to throw some makeup on just to run into Dollar General.
Plus, that's money.
Right.
That's money for that makeup that you're only going to have one for 15, 20 minutes.
I don't even think so much about the money of the makeup. It's just the fact that I'm not going to take that time.
Mm-hmm.
And before, there was no way. And I think that the makeup and stuff gave me the confidence.
Right, it does. Mm-hmm.
To feel okay leaving the home.
Mm-hmm.
To feel like I was put together.
Right.
And now, I'm almost 50 years old, and just now getting to the point that it don't matter.
Right.
I can be together with makeup or without makeup.
And it helps too that you have somebody that loves you regardless.
Right.
I'm sure that he said that to you. Like,
right. It does
I
make
don't
a difference.
care. I don't care what you look like. I still love you,
Right.
Which is where I am too, and that makes a big difference.
It does.
So, plus, when you get older, you're also like, well, whatever. You know what I mean? It's 5 minutes,
Right. I'm not putting makeup on for 5 minutes. That took me longer to put it on and take it off than what it did for me to wear it just to go down there.
Yeah, to run that errand. Yeah, exactly.
And I'll still pull into the store and be like, I don't know if I want to go in or not because I don't have any makeup on.
Mm-hmm.
And I look like a bum.
And we're both like, people look at us and be like, I didn't recognize you. Yeah, I don't have makeup on. Yeah. I know this. Trust me. I don't have makeup on. No, that's not what it is. You just look different. Yeah, I know. It's totally different.
I may still avoid people though.
Right. Yes.
If I don't have my makeup on. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Just like your son, when I said the other day I had to put my what was it? I need to go put my eyebrows on.
Yeah.
Because I had all my makeup on and where I was blonde growing up. My eyebrows didn't get dark with my hair. They stayed like white blonde.
Your eyebrows and eyelashes.
I look almost albino when I have like makeup on and no eyebrows. But he came out of the room. It wasn't even in the same room that we were in, and comes out of there and he was like, "You mean to tell me you actually take your eyebrows off?"
Yes. And he was serious about that.
Dead
Absolutely
serious. So I don't want to have to explain to people that, I take my eyebrows off.
Right. Yes. Yes. And it's just these things that, you are so insecure about over all of the years. And, even little things, like you say, that just make such a big difference.
Yeah.
In how you perceive yourself.
Right. Buck tooth and freckle face and all that stuff. Those digs when you're a kid that stick with you, and makeup covers all that up, so you're good.
Right. Yes. Yeah.
But you eventually have to become comfortable in your own skin and not really care so much about what everybody else thinks.
Right.
If you're fine with what you look like or what you're doing.
And I think that also goes back to kind of what we went through. It was appearances.
It was.
Like you had to make everything look good.
Yeah.
And, everything on the outside had to look like it was perfect.
And if our outside looked good, if we had our makeup on and our hair fixed, everything inside was fine too. When it wasn't.
Right, exactly.
We could wear makeup and cover up all the pain and all the beating down that we do of ourselves and all of that. The makeup may have covered that up and made us look halfway decent, but the inside was still ugly and
just there was so much in there. Yeah, right. That's exactly right. So much in there that it, you can only, they say putting lipstick on a pig, basically trying to cover up something that's still there.
Right. It's still a pig whether you have lipstick on it or not.
Yeah. Whether you can see what's going on or not. That hurt, those holes, everything. But it was almost there.
Like if we looked together, if we looked like we were well dressed, had our hair done, our makeup done, then people wouldn't ask about what was going on the inside because everything looked fine on the outside. And you're right, that has a lot to do with what all we went through.
And when I say this, I don't mean this as like a brag or anything like that, but because I never thought of myself as popular in school. I just talk to everybody. I just do what I do. I'm just me,
Right.
But I was in chorus. I sang, for all the home basketball games, the national anthem with a couple other girls. And then like captain of the softball team. I know you were too. And then I got voted like a queen for our school that we were. And like, I never thought anything, it wasn't any, you know what I mean? Like not in a million years did I think that I would have ever won anything like that. But even one of my very best friends, this is the one that I go on girls' trips with, she said, I had no idea, that any of this was going on. I knew that things were different. She said, but you never acted like anything like this was going on. And that's because everything on the outside, throughout school, everything was supposed to be good.
And I think that too, when we left the house and were able to actually go stay with people, we didn't want to talk about the stuff that was going on because we wanted to have fun.
Yeah.
And that was just, who wants to be the Debbie Downer and say, oh yeah, this is what all's going on at my house.
And it hadn't worked before.
No, it hadn't.
And so it's kind of like, you know what? Forget it. Like
and
you say,
I'm just escape.
I'm just going to go. I'm going to enjoy myself. I'm not going to think about it. I don't have to worry about my door opening up at 12 o'clock tonight, somebody rubbing my leg and me being awake till 4 o'clock in the morning. I don't have to worry about that tonight.
Right.
I can sleep.
Right.
And know that nothing's going to happen when I'm in this house and I'm sleeping.
And I can laugh, genuinely laugh.
Yes. Yes.
And enjoy being around someone and not have to worry.
I remember, like, I am a hugger. Always have been. I'm very affectionate. I do more hugging now of, like, my male friends and things like that. But when I would go to my friends' houses, there's one that I was around all the time. She was always at my house or I was at her house. I don't remember ever hugging her dad one time until I was probably well into my 20s because I didn't know what he would do.
Right.
I didn't know if he would try something.
Right.
And I know good and well that he would never have done that.
Right.
But because of where we were in the circumstances, I would not hug him.
Right.
Because then you're vulnerable.
And I could never be vulnerable. Maybe that's why I'm not a hugger.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
That's too close. I don't like people in my personal space. I'm like, this is my bubble. Please stay out.
And it's strange to me that with, I guess, how affectionate that I am, that I wasn't that way, you know? Because we went through the same thing. It's just funny how we went through the same things, but people handle things totally differently, you know, based on your personalities.
I was going to say, our personalities are different. I was more reserved. I was quiet. I was shy.
But I don't know how I was able to completely divide that, you know?
I don't know.
Because you couldn't. It was there, you know what I mean?
I was the type that if there was a crowded room, I wanted to be in a corner somewhere away from anybody else because I didn't want to be noticed.
And I guess I was the opposite. Because
you just talked to everybody.
Yeah, because then, like you said, nothing is, you know, we're not talking about that. And so that was my kind of getaway, you know, my happy place is just to talk to people, have fun, laugh, joke, you know, whatever. It doesn't matter, you know. And it's just funny that how we're sisters and deal with things completely differently.
And and to have been raised in the same house and pretty much go through the same stuff, not knowing that each of us are going through that at the time. But yeah, I guess maybe I was like, if I fade into the background, no one can see the dirty on me.
Right.
And nobody will ask me questions.
And I guess mine was just, I'm just going to be here
right.
and just be in the moment and be around everybody else, because if I'm like this, they're not going to think anything.
Right.
And I remember getting in trouble my freshman or sophomore year. No, yeah, somewhere along in there. And at school the next day, me and a couple of my friends were talking, and they both were like, do you really think that at this age you should be getting in trouble for that? Like, really getting in trouble? That's when I said I got whipped for the last time. And, you know, they were like, don't you think you should be able to just sit down and have a conversation with your dad versus getting whipped? And I was like, no, it does not work like that at my house. It does not. And I literally got up out of my desk. I never left class, never did anything like that. I was never late for class, anything. The bell had just rang. The teacher was literally walking in. I got up out of my desk and took off to the bathroom. I did not cry, because if you cry, you know, whatever, then a lot of times, you know, teachers would want to know what was going on or whatever. And you can't do that because that's a chance that you're taking that somebody would find out what was going on, and you can't do that.
Right. And things would be so much worse if you talked about it.
Yes. And so in order to not lose it and not tell them, listen, there's nothing normal in my life. Nothing normal. My life is nothing like yours.
Right.
I don't have that relationship like you guys have.
Right.
I wish I did, but I don't.
Right.
I had to get up and physically remove myself from that conversation with people that dearly loved me and I dearly loved, you know, who still had no clue about anything. So in order to still keep it like that, that's what I had to do.
Right.
So, and that's what we did a lot of times to cover things up.
Right.
Whatever it was that we had to do to remove ourselves or change a subject or whatever it was. After we tried to get help and it didn't work, it was like, okay, well, this is the hand that we're dealt. We just have to know that this is how it's going to be.
Right.
And no one can know about it.
Right.
And we just have to do whatever we have to do to make sure that nobody knows about it.
Right. Yeah. That is true. Well, do you have anything else for today?
I don't think. I think, just the fact that we were talking about just
how it
the stigma, that it just should not be that men are not able to talk about it, and they're not comfortable talking about it because of the way that things have been approached.
Everybody should be able to talk about what they've been through without any kind of judgment.
Yeah.
Whether it be female, male, it doesn't matter.
And this person that messaged us, I'm not even sure that he's ever even listened to the podcast. I don't think, according to our message, that he's listened to the podcast, but he saw our ad and I guess felt the need to message us and talk to us about some things. And so...
And if you've paid attention to the messages, though, he's used God and his belief in God to heal.
Yes.
So God sends people your way. Yes. And just by talking to him, I was like, just the things that he said, how he dealt with things, and by not dealing with things. I was like, yes. Been there, done that.
Yes.
And you're like, it's a pattern. And whether it's a female that's talked to us or a male that's talked to us, it's almost like a bond, like an automatic bond with them, because you've been there and you know that they've been there, and you know it's true because so many of the things that they say resonates within you too.
And with him, he hadn't listened to us,
Right.
And so therefore he had to have been kind of
God
brought into our, to see our ad, and because we don't have mutual friends, it's not things like that,
Right.
And so he had to have, not
God,
just stumbled up on it, but God, put it there for him to see and for him to be able to reach out to us and for us to be able to feel like, okay, you know what I mean? Like, I think this person's legit. And like, we're sorry that you've gone through what you've gone through. And wow,
And thank you for reaching out and sharing with us.
And not every week do we know exactly what we're going to talk about when we get in here.
No.
Like, it doesn't. Like, and today was kind of one of those days that we didn't have like a certain topic a couple days before like we do sometimes. But his message to us when he reached out led to this topic of conversation,
And you automatically, when it comes to like Facebook and stuff like that, you get so many scam people and all that you you're like, well, let me see what they got to say. And you keep reading and you realize this is a real person.
Yes.
They did go through real things. And when you start seeing, Jesus Christ is what has saved me from self-destruction and all of that, you're like, yep, God sent them our way for a reason.
Yes.
There's that. There's not only that connection because of the trauma that, I can relate to this person, but there's also that brother, sister in Christ bond. So I'm thankful that people reach out to us and share their stories, because then, like I had told this person, I said, I appreciate you sharing all that, because not only are we doing this to let other people know that they're not alone in dealing with this kind of stuff, but when people feed into us and give us their feedback and the things they've gone through, it lets us realize that we're not alone either.
Absolutely. Yes. Yes.
That there are people out there, and it's just so much that there's so much similarity in the things that other people have gone through and that we've gone through. It's like, does Satan use the same tactic with everybody? Because there's so much that's so similar.
Right. Yeah, that's exactly right. Yes.
So getting that feedback and hearing from other people, and it doesn't necessarily have to be, oh, let me share with you my trauma.
Mm-hmm.
Just hearing people say, I really enjoy listening to your podcast. I didn't know that you all had gone through that. And just them getting to know us a little bit better. Yeah. Us taking off that makeup, that facade, and people seeing why we're the way we are and who we are and things like that. I think it's just helped other people see the realness of who we are too, and feel open enough to share, even though they hadn't listened to anything or seen anything. It's just God does that. I mean, he just does that.
And I am so glad, like, at this point, and you hear this, or I've heard this, and I've been like, yeah, I get it. But throughout this whole podcast that we've been doing, I am very, very thankful to be able to say, I was a victim. I did go through this, but we survived, and we are surviving every day. And thank God for that.
Right. And we're able to share our survival with others and let them see what we've done and how we've, I wouldn't say overcome, because we battle every day, but how we've dealt with what else happened with us.
Yes.
And giving them that opportunity to share with us ways that they've dealt.
And even if they haven't opened up, just to be able to say, like one of them has, I will talk to you eventually about this, but knowing that I have somebody that I can talk to when the time comes and I feel comfortable doing that.
Right.
That makes me feel better. Knowing that they know that it doesn't matter.
Judge-free.
Yeah.
Judge-free zone.
And
that they have that comfort of knowing I can eventually talk to someone.
Yes. Yes.
I don't have to carry this around with me for the rest of my life. There is someone there that I can talk to that can understand and relate to what we're going through.
Absolutely. Yes. And that's the whole reason for this.
Right. Well, we will be back next week and hope you all have a wonderful week.